Imagine for a second being forced by your city to pay for a 43,000 burr fence, just to make your street look a little more modern.
Right.
But inside your house, you can barely afford to buy damp, rotting onions for your family's dinner.
It's just wild.
It is. And that exact paradox is what we are looking at today. So, welcome to the deep dive. For this conversation, we're operating from a really special vantage point. We are sitting right at the desks of Addis Fortune.
Ethiopia's largest English weekly newspaper.
Exactly. It's June 26, 2026, and we've been flipping through the biggest stories from this week's edition, and there is this fascinating, almost invisible thread tying all these pieces together.
Yeah, it really is the hidden narrative of the week. Our mission today is to connect the dots across multiple reports. So we're looking at sweeping fiscal reforms, capital market shifts, and some pretty severe agricultural breakdowns.
Right.
On the surface, if you just glance at the headlines, they look like completely separate beats. But when you synthesize them, they all point to the exact same friction.
The friction of a rapidly transitioning economy.
Yeah, because reading through these Addis Fortune pages, the overarching story is a government that is just sprinting toward modernization. You have officials rolling out these incredible high-tech systems and, gleaming stock markets.
Top of the line stuff.
Right, but at the exact same time, I guess you could call them the shoelaces of the economy. Like the back office infrastructure and everyday citizens, they're just getting entirely tangled up.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it honestly feels like Ethiopia is trying to upgrade a commercial airplane's engine, but while it is flying in midair.
Yes, that mid-year upgrade is the perfect way to visualize it. I mean, you have this massive top-down push to build a digital modern state. But the foundation it's being built on is still struggling with some very stubborn analog realities. And nowhere is that friction more obvious or honestly more urgent than in how the state handles money.
Let's start right there. The federal government is currently staring down an $847.9 billion burr tax financing gap.
Which is a staggering number.
It's huge. They need cash to fund this whole transition.
Yeah.
And to bridge that gap, the Ministry of Revenues is rolling out an ambitious electronic invoicing system, or EIS.
Right.
Help me understand the mechanics of this, because it sounds like a massive leap from the standard cash registers that businesses are used to right now.
Oh, it is a complete paradigm shift. So historically, if you run a business in Ethiopia using a physical cash register, you send what's called a Z report at the end of the night.
Okay.
It's essentially just a batch summary of your entire day's sales, and it gets sent to the tax authority over a SIM card. But the new EIS replaces that completely.
So no more midnight summaries.
Exactly. The government no longer wants a summary at midnight. They want real-time transaction tracking.
So wait, the moment I buy a coffee, the government is essentially sitting at the table with us.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The exact moment a sale happens before the payment is even finalized or a receipt is handed to you, the merchant's software has to ping the ministry's database.
Yeah.
It communicates the exact details of the sale and generates an instant, unique QR code. The whole goal is to completely eliminate forged receipts and pull every single transaction into this centralized, real-time monitoring platform.
I mean, I can understand the logic from a tax collection perspective, right? Real-time compliance is a standard a lot of developed economies strive for to stop tax evasion.
Sure, on paper, it makes sense.
But if I am a tech provider trying to actually build and deploy this system in Ethiopia right now, what does that invoice look like? What are the requirements?
The barrier to entry is staggering. To even be authorized to provide this EIS PEC, a company has to put up a performance bond of up to $250,000.
$250,000?
Yeah, and they are mandated to use Tier 3 data centers located within Ethiopia, keep at least 8 senior software engineers on staff full-time, and this is a big one, undergo strict security clearances from INTBES, the Information Network Security Administration.
Well, that immediately filters out like almost all smaller domestic tech startups.
Complete.
But let's look at the businesses actually caught in this tax net. The Addis Fortune piece on exporters of pulses and oilseeds paints a pretty grim picture.
It really does. So the Ethiopian Pulses, Oilseeds, and Spices Processors and Exporters Association, EPAZIA, they surveyed their members. And 87.1% reported facing a severe liquidity crisis.
87%, that's almost the entire sector.
Exactly. And a massive driver of that crisis is a 25% quarterly advance tax.
Wait, break the math down on that for me. If I am an exporter and I haven't even shipped my product yet or received payment from my foreign buyer, How does the government calculate a 25% tax on a profit that technically doesn't exist?
That is precisely the structural friction we are talking about. The government is essentially taxing anticipated earnings.
That's crazy.
They are draining the working capital from these businesses before the revenue has actually materialized. And Elias Hallenmeskel, a prominent official from the Ministry of Revenues, he takes a very hardline stance on this in the reporting.
What does he say?
He argues that if a business is running at a continuous loss or simply can't handle the tax burden, well, it simply shouldn't exist.
That is a remarkably unsympathetic view of how cash flow works.
It is. And interestingly, it's causing internal friction within the government itself. Officials from the Trade Ministry are actually siding with the exporters here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they are warning that this aggressive tax collection is going to choke off the vital hard currency that the country desperately needs.
Okay, so this brings up a massive question for me. The state is demanding 100% digital perfection from a rural exporter, right?
Right.
They want real-time QR codes. They are pulling 25% of anticipated profits out of the private sector. So where is that perfectly tracked money actually going? Because Federal Auditor General, Ms. Damty, just released a report on the government's own ledger, and it is a completely different universe.
It is the exact opposite of digital perfection. So while the Ministry of Revenues is tracking pennies in real time, the audit of the government's 1.5 trillion birr budget revealed catastrophic leaks.
Catastrophic.
Meseret Damty found over 16 billion birr uncollected across 138 different state agencies.
16 billion. And it's not just uncollected revenue, is it? The report detailed 1.2 billion birr spent with missing or entirely inadequate documentation across major departments.
Yeah, places like the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Mines, Foreign Affairs.
But the detail that really highlights the dysfunction for me, the one that's just hard to wrap your head around, is the payroll issue. How does an automated, modernizing state pay salaries to people who have died?
I know, that was one of the most glaring findings in the whole audit. They discovered salaries flowing to employees who had long since retired, been dismissed, or literally passed away.
It's unbelievable.
For instance, the CEO of Alert Hospital, Tesfaye Gudeta, he had to publicly explain why retired doctors were still on their payroll.
And what was his excuse?
He blamed procedural lapses. He argued they needed the retired staff to keep working, but simply failed to properly notify the Civil Service Commission.
So, if we step back and look at the whole picture here, the state is basically acting like a restaurant owner who shakes down the waiters for every last dime of their tips in real time, demanding perfect QR-coded accounting for every single coin.
Right.
But meanwhile, the back door to the kitchen is wide open and the inventory is just walking out.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see the immense economic weight being placed on the public. Mird Fikir-Yohannes, the CEO of Pragma Capital, made a brilliant observation in the Addis Fortune coverage.
Yeah, what did he say?
He called the Auditor General a lion without teeth. She has the capability to meticulously document all this waste, but she lacks the forensic muscle to actually prosecute it. She has to rely on the Ministry of Justice to enforce anything.
Meaning the waste is documented, but it's rarely ever recovered.
Exactly. So what happens? Aggressive taxation of the private sector gets embedded into the prices of goods and services. The burden is ultimately passed down to you, the consumer. And at the same time, state inefficiencies waste the funds that were supposed to build the country. The everyday citizen just gets squeezed from both ends.
And this exact dynamic, this high-tech ambition clashing with back office, analog reality, it isn't just happening with taxes.
No, not at all.
It is the exact story playing out in Ethiopia's fledgling capital markets. Because if you read the headlines about the Ethiopian Securities Exchange, the ESX, it looks like an absolute boom.
The top line numbers are certainly impressive. I mean, over 1 billion birr cleared in a single week.
Wow.
You have Awash Bank shares surging 37%, touching 3,000 birr. On paper, it looks like a roaring success.
But if you are a listener right now and you think, great, I want to open a brokerage account and buy some Awash shares, you are about to hit an invisible wall.
A very thick wall.
Because the reality for the retail investor is a multi-week delay just to open an account. How is it possible to clear 1 billion birr in a week but take a month to verify a single citizen's identity?
Because the digital infrastructure is completely fragmented. The bottleneck is sitting right in the middle of the system, the Central Securities Depository, or the CSD. Yeah. Currently, the CSD is not fully integrated with the back office software that the brokers actually use.
So what are they doing?
You have employees doing manual reconciliation.
Manual reconciliation, like they are checking names by hand.
Yes. And that leads to the FADA national ID system mismatch. Let's say your birth date is formatted differently on your broker's legacy record compared to your new FADA national ID.
Or like the spelling of your grandfather's name is off by one letter.
Exactly. Because the systems don't seamlessly talk to each other, that tiny discrepancy triggers an endless loop of duplicate registration errors.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Jameshu Burhanu, who works at the exchange, he made a really sharp point about user expectations here.
Oh, about the international platforms.
Yeah. He noted that young Ethiopian investors today are used to trading on international platforms like Exness or HFM. And on those platforms, Know Your Customer, or KYC, is instant. You upload your ID, an algorithm verifies your face, and you are trading that afternoon.
Right.
But locally, that same process takes a month.
Yeah, he likened the local experience to holding money in your hands but having absolutely no mechanism to actually move it. And the friction isn't just technological. It's also behavioral. We have to look at the incentives for the brokers.
Right, because brokers are private businesses. If I am running a brokerage firm and I have a 30 million burr mandate on my desk to handle corporate advisory work for a massive company, I am not going to pull my staff off that account to manually fix a spelling error for a retail investor trying to buy 10 shares of a bank.
Exactly. It makes perfect business sense for the broker to prioritize institutional clients. Labor-intensive retail account registrations naturally get pushed to the back of the queue. But this raises a profound question about the whole purpose of the exchange.
Well, the market was pitched as power to the people, right? Broadening ownership, letting everyday citizens own a piece of the economy.
That was the promise.
But if the tech is broken and the brokers are financially disincentivized, aren't these digital speed bumps accidentally creating a highly exclusive club? Like a market only for those who have the time, patience, and capital to wait a month.
That is the unintended consequence. Infrastructure almost always lags behind policy. But the ESX has massive 5-year goals. They want a 1 trillion burr market capitalization and 3 million retail investors.
Good luck with that.
Right. Without seamless digital identity integration and automated KYC, it is mathematically impossible to hit 3 million users. The market will just remain narrow, dominated by large corporate players, and largely illiquid for the everyday citizen.
So we've seen how this top-down modernization is pricing people out in the digital realms, locking them out of the tax system's cash flow, and locking them out of the stock market's wealth generation. But the sources from Addis Fortune show this friction is also happening in the physical world. It is hitting people right where they live and right where they eat. Modernization is making basic survival incredibly expensive.
Let's start with housing. If you look at the South Ethiopia regional state, in fast-growing towns like Wolaita Sodo, Arba Minch, and Dilla, regional authorities have passed a sweeping administrative ban on the construction of traditional mud and wood houses.
They are mandating that all new construction use bricks and concrete blocks instead.
Yes.
And the sources mention the reasoning is twofold, right? Aesthetic and environmental. They want cleaner, more modern-looking cities, and they are trying to stop deforestation, which, let's be honest, is undeniably a real issue.
It is. The reporting notes that the Gamo area alone lost 13,000 hectares of tree cover.
That's terrible, but the question is, who actually pays the invoice for this aesthetic upgrade?
Well, the cost is almost instantly passed down to the poorest residents. The Addis Fortune report highlighted a specific case, Serkalam Tessom, a tenant living in Arba Minch. The municipality forced her landlord to build a new corrugated fence to comply with these modern aesthetic rules.
Okay.
That fence cost 43,000 burr.
And the landlord didn't just absorb that cost out of the goodness of his heart.
No, of course not. The landlord immediately passed that financial burden on to Serkalam, hiking her rent by 1,000 burr a month.
Wow.
Legal experts in the piece are sounding the alarm on this. They warn that a sweeping administrative ban like this actually threatens the constitutional right to basic shelter. You have a local government mandating premium, expensive building materials in regions where household incomes are simply not equipped to handle the cost.
And that sudden strain on the household budget, an extra 1,000 burr just to look at a nicer fence, is colliding with an absolute crisis at the dinner table.
The food inflation.
Yes. When we look at Addis Ababa, inflation has roared back into the most politically sensitive corner of the economy, the food basket. Vegetable inflation hit 12.3% year-on-year in May. Food inflation has actually overtaken non-food inflation.
And the details on the onion crisis perfectly illustrate the fragility of this whole supply chain. Consumers like Seniat Bekele and Sion Temujin are paying between 120 and 160 birr for a single kilogram of onions.
And we aren't talking about pristine produce here, right?
No, these are damp, bruised onions that are rotting from the inside out.
They are paying double the price for food that goes bad before they can even put it in a stew. Help me understand the mechanism here. Why are the onions rotting and why are they 160 birr? Where did the supply chain actually break?
Well, to understand the 160 birr onion today, you have to rewind the clock and look at what happened to the farmer 6 months ago.
Okay.
This isn't just a story about a bad weather event, it's a story of financial devastation. 6 months ago, the farm gate price for onions completely crashed. It fell to just 16 birr a kilogram.
16 birr, meaning the physical cost of paying a laborer to just harvest the onions was higher than what the farmer could sell them for at the market.
Exactly. Take Guda Balcha, a farmer in the Dua Meki Roreta. He had invested heavily. He had access to improved seeds and technical support. But when the price crashed to 16 birr, he was plunged 700,000 birr into debt.
The 700,000 birr.
Yeah. He and his neighbors were forced to make a brutal economic calculation. They literally left their crops rotting in the fields because paying to harvest and transport them would only deepen their financial ruin.
Going 700,000 birr into debt as a farmer doesn't just hurt. I mean, it completely paralyzes you.
It strips the entire farming community of their working capital. You cannot buy seeds, fertilizer, fuel, or labor for the next planting season if your savings are entirely wiped out and you are drowning in debt.
So what did farmers like Gouda do to survive?
They abandoned vegetables. They shifted their land to lower-risk crops that require fewer expensive inputs, like maize.
So the sheer volume of vegetables entering the national supply chain just plummets. And then, for the few onions that are harvested, you add the logistical nightmare of transporting them. Transporters hauling vegetables from places like Benishangul Gumuz are facing overhead costs as high as 340,000 birr just for a single truck.
And that is largely driven by fuel shortages and informal payments demanded along the trade routes. Even farmers who rely on irrigation pumps are struggling.
Because they can't get fuel either.
Exactly. They can't get standard diesel, so they are forced onto the parallel market, paying up to 600 birr a liter just to water their crops. The entire supply chain just shatters under the weight of these costs.
So when Dawit Teshale from the Ethiopian Economics Association says you can't just run another shift to increase agricultural production, this is exactly what he means. You can't code your way out of a shattered supply chain.
No, you can't.
The farmer's financial devastation 6 months ago becomes the city dweller's inflation today. It's like development is being defined by people who don't have to look at price tags.
This is where every story from Addis Fortune converges this week.
Yeah.
The government's push for modern aesthetics in the South and real-time digital tax compliance nationwide, it completely ignores the analog realities on the ground.
Right.
It ignores the fundamental lack of working capital for a farmer to plant their next crop. It ignores the lack of digital infrastructure for brokers to onboard retail investors. And it ignores the lack of affordable housing options for low-income tenants.
It's a massive invoice. Transitioning to a modern, digital, beautiful economy carries a staggering price tag. And based on what we're reading today, it's not the state absorbing that cost. The everyday taxpayer, the tenant, the consumer, and the farmer, they are being forced to foot the bill.
They really are.
They are the ones absorbing the shock of the transition. The state is leapfrogging into the future with QR codes and stock market bells, but the mechanisms that actually sustain daily life, affordable food, accessible shelter, fair market entry, are just buckling under the pressure.
That is the defining friction. Modernization without foundational support doesn't lift everyone up. It just makes survival more expensive for the people at the bottom.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy, provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive. As the government successfully builds these inescapable digital nets, the real-time tax tracking, the mandatory digital IDs, the automated ledgers, will this brilliant technology actually solve Ethiopia's deep structural economic issues?
Or will it just serve to perfectly, precisely, and immutably document the financial squeeze of its citizens?
Exactly. Are we actually fixing the engine or just installing a high-definition camera to watch the shoelaces get tangled?
That is exactly the question you need to be asking as these new systems come online around you.
Huge thanks to you for sitting down with us at the Addis Fortune Desk today. It is a complex, shifting landscape, but taking the time to understand these hidden frictions, the mechanics behind the headlines, is exactly how you stay ahead of the curve. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking past the surface, and we will see you on the next deep dive. Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thanks for listening.